Taming, ought to, in reported speech, a guide to English grammar. Hello, dear learners. Welcome to our session on English language learning. Today we're tackling a very intriguing aspect of the English language, one that often puzzles even experienced English speakers. We're diving deep into reported speech and specifically focusing on how to report, ought to. Grab your notebooks and pens, because it's time to understand this English gem. Before we report, ought to, let's understand its use in direct speech. Ought to is a type of modal verb used to indicate duty or correctness. It's often used interchangeably with should. For instance, you might say, "You ought to read more books." "We ought to help those in need." See how ought to expresses a sense of obligation or advice in these sentences. That's its core function in direct speech. Now, let's learn how to transform this into reported speech. When reporting a sentence with ought to, the structure usually remains the same. The modal verb doesn't change. For example, let's say I directly tell you, "You ought to study for your test tomorrow." If someone else wanted to report this advice, they might say, "He said that you ought to study for your test tomorrow." Notice that ought to remains unchanged in reported speech. Simple, right? Now it's your turn. Let's do some exercises to practice what we've just learned. I'll give you a sentence in direct speech, and I want you to convert it to reported speech. 1. You ought to apologize for your behavior. 2. They ought to clean up this mess. 3. She ought to apply for that scholarship. Remember, keep ought to as it is and focus on the correct reporting verb and pronoun adjustments. Allow time for audience practice. Now, let's check your answers. 1. He said that you ought to apologize for your behavior. 2. She said that they ought to clean up this mess. 3. He said that she ought to apply for that scholarship. If you got them all right, great job. If not, don't worry. Keep practicing and you'll get the hang of it. Thank you for joining today's lesson on reporting, ought to, in reported speech. I hope this session made this concept clearer for you. Remember, practice is key to mastering this and any other aspect of English grammar. Until next time, keep practicing and happy learning.